Jeff Hartman here with Real Estate Podcast, and this is going to be our premiere episode, if you will. What I want to talk about today is I want to talk about being a full-time agent and working with a full-time agent versus part-time agent versus somebody who is not committing themselves 100% of their time to real estate. And I want to talk about a misconception that we also get. And that misconception is that that we're constantly trying to sell you something. There's two angles to look at here. There's your existing clients, and then there's new prospects. So with existing clients, one of the things I hear all the time is, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to bug you. And that's typically because these are people who either have worked with me in the past and understand how real estate agents are paid, and they're thinking, well, he's not getting paid to talk to me about this stuff, so I don't want to bother him. Or, you know, they think that we're too busy to deal with something. I'm not really sure why they say this. I'm guessing, I'm supposing, but it makes sense. So that's what we kind of get from existing clients or people that have known us for a long time. Sometimes when we help them, they even offer to pay for like advice and stuff like that, because there's not this understanding of what service is. And that's just because of the world we live in. But then there's the other side of things, where a lot of times when I do prospecting, and we use sales terms, so there's this constant idea that I'm trying to sell somebody something when I call them. So for example, if I have a listing in Fullerton, and I will do what's called circle prospecting, what I do is I'll call people within a certain radius of that listing to, if it's before the listing hits the market, to invite them to the open house. Or if it's after or during the listing, I'll see if they have any questions. And I have certain scripts to get to know these people. One of the first things that happens is, you know, these people don't know me, so they'll say, well, I'm not interested in selling my house right now. A lot of them hang up when they say that, or whatever. They say, I'm not interested in selling. I'm not looking to sell. Well, I always joke with them and I say, well, that's funny, because I was really hoping that when I called you, you were wanting to sell and had no idea where to find a real estate agent. And that usually makes them laugh, you know, have a little bit better flow. And then we start talking from there. The biggest misconception is that I'm trying to convince them to sell their house. That's not the case. I'm not trying to convince them to sell their house. They know when they want to sell. And they get this probably as a result of a lot of agents that knock on their doors or have knocked on their doors, kind of old school, and said, have you ever considered selling your home? Just bad scripts. And that gives people the impression that we're salespeople trying to get them to sell their home. That's not what it is. That's not what it is at all. Additionally, they think I'm trying to call them with a potential buyer. And sometimes I do that, but I'll tell you what, I never ever call or hit up a homeowner saying that I have a buyer for their house if I don't. I've done this only a couple of times for legit buyers. What I am trying to sell people on, if anything, is on my service. I'm trying to tell them, hey, when you're ready to sell your house, I'm here. And if there's anything I can do for you until that time comes, anything from just provide you information about the market to maybe referring you to a good plumber. So those are some things to think about. Also, on the buy side of things, anybody that follows me on social media knows that I'm constantly telling people, hey, you know, renting is a losing proposition, stuff like that. So what I'm doing there is I'm not trying to get these people to buy a house that they don't want or that they're not ready to do. What I'm trying to do is get them to think about the fact that the reality is they're throwing their money away if they're renting. And that's the truth. That's the truth. Hey, I've owned homes and I've rented homes, you know, and every time I was in a situation where I was renting, I was always figuring out a way to buy, right? To buy a house, you know, because life happens, you know, and you end up in circumstances where you have to rent. Maybe you end up having to, live with a relative. I've talked to a lot of buyers that have actually stopped renting, moved back in with their parents. And I'm talking about people that have families. I'm not talking about 20 somethings. I'm talking about people in their 30s and 40s with kids that have realized that they're tossing good money away and a lot of money away renting. So I do try to educate people and get them to understand this. But again, I'm not the one who's selling the house. The seller is selling the house. They've decided to sell. The buyer wants to buy a house. They know what they want. What we do is we're advocates for one or both sides. We make sure the seller is following the law. We make sure the seller has the access to the best way to market the house and get it exposed to the public to get the most amount of buyers in. And once we're in the escrow process, which is where real estate agents really earn their money, that's when we are making sure that the buyer is not taking advantage of the seller, and the seller is not doing more than they need to transfer this house into the buyer's, possession. We'll talk about that another time. But anyway, and on the buy side, I am helping that buyer write the best possible offers on the best possible terms, making sure they're not overpaying, making sure they're taking a look at that house, making sure the house is in good condition, looking for things that my level of expertise, can see. I can visually see, hey, there's a crack here. Maybe we should look outside and see if there's a crack matching on the outside. And then, hey, this is something that if we do put an offer in and accept it, we want to maybe get a foundation expert out here. If I see the roof is in bad shape, I always make sure and let them know this. So I'm an advocate for them. I'm not in a hurry to get them into that house or close. What I'm doing is I'm making sure that that house that they buy is not going to be, to use an auto term, a lemon, because I decide I'm going to be around this person for hopefully a long time, and I want to do right by them. Anyway, that brings me to my story. I want to give you an example of some of the things that I personally do for my clients, and that is I'm going to tell a story, but I'm going to use a different name. We're going to call this gentleman Tom, and we're going to call his wife Mary. All right, so it's Tom and Mary. So I met Tom years ago. He registered on one of my home search sites back in probably 2013, 2014. And we talked, very nice guy. And for whatever reason, we built that rapport. He trusted me. So he had me over to his house to come in and take a look at the upgrades he'd done because he was considering selling and downsizing. His wife had some medical issues. They have a 2-story home, but he had a certain dollar amount that he wanted for that home, which is very common. Over the years, I've known Tom and I've kept him apprised of what his home is worth and will most likely sell for. And he's never been interested in selling it. The price points have never appealed to him. And it's changed over time as the economy changes. A price that he wanted to sell it at 2 years ago now was, past. We were past that point, but he realized the market was up and obviously any replacement home would be more expensive. So he changed his price. So to this day, he still has not sold his home. And now it's almost 10 years later. So about 2 years ago, both of them are retired. He was injured while working. He was working a part-time job, and he was injured. And bear in mind, these people are in their 70s and 80s. And he could no longer supplement his retirement income. And so he had to get a reverse mortgage, which this is one of the times when a reverse mortgage is something to consider. I won't get into that right now, but, and he had, he again always felt like if he was calling me for stuff, he was bothering me. So the only time I would typically hear from him is, when he would return my call. I stayed in touch with him, made sure I kept in touch with him all the ways we do with notes and phone calls and emails and stuff like that. Well, he, he didn't want to bother me, so he already found a mortgage lender to help him with his reverse mortgage when I checked in with him again. Even though I told him, hey, when you're ready, I can connect you and do an introduction. He didn't want a premature introduction to a lender. And then what happened was, he went with a lender that I didn't know, a larger organization, and I didn't know who this lender was. So, I called him to check in and say, hey, how's it going with the reverse mortgage? How's that going? Everything's good. And then he called me about, I don't know, maybe a month after that. And this is about, I'm going to say 6 months ago or so, maybe less. And he said, hey, I'm a little concerned. I got this letter from my mortgage company that they're out of business. And he hasn't been able to reach him. So I went over to his house. We looked at all his paperwork, and I called. The number was not disconnected, but it had some weird outbound message. He could not find any mail on the whoever the loan was sold to in whatever liquidation took place or assignment took place. So we were having a lot of trouble figuring it out. So I had my title rep look into it, and the transition was occurring, so we couldn't really figure it out at that point. It was too early in the process. And then anyway, a couple days later, we figured it out. And he got in touch with who it was. Now, on a reverse mortgage, for those of you who don't know how it works, you don't have to make a payment. What happens is, and I'm oversimplifying here, and all you have to do is pay your taxes and insurance. And if you want to make a payment, you can. But the idea is it's for people on a fixed income who can't afford whatever payment their house was before they refied into a reverse mortgage. But what happens is that interest, and again, I'm oversimplifying, that interest gets applied to the principal. So let's say you owe $300,000 on this home. Your home is worth $600,000. Let's say it's worth $900,000, right? And you only owe, $300,000. Well, the interest you would typically pay on your June or July payment would then go towards the principal. So then your mortgage, your balance on your principal would be $300,750. Okay. And so over time, eventually, depending on what happens in the market, depending on how much equity you had, you have to be careful because that principal balance could start to catch up, and then you go into that problem where you owe more than the house is worth. I called him. Something in my gut said, hey, let's check in with Tom here. So I called him, and he says, yeah, Jeff, I'm really concerned. I'm getting these calls from real estate agents, and I'm getting all these notices. I don't know what's going on, but he was scared, and his wife was very stressed out. So I went over there. Again, this is what happens. A lot of times older people get taken advantage of, and that's what was happening here. He couldn't tell the difference between a marketing piece and a legitimate legitimate mail from his lender. Very dangerous spot to be in, because if you call the wrong person, some of these people are predatorial, and you have to be careful. It's sad, but it's true, and we all know this. So I talked to him, and he said, well, I've got a guy coming out tomorrow. He told me how this guy was talking to him, and I'm like, okay, what time is he coming over? He said 10:30. I said, I'll be there at 9:30. So I was there at 9:30, and by that time, the day before, I'd been working with my title rep, who's amazing. And that whole day we spent going back and forth trying to figure out why their home was in pre-foreclosure, which it was pre-foreclosure. He was getting ready to lose his house. Okay. So his wife's health is in poor condition. She's stressing out. He's stressing out. And these people are in their 70s and 80s. And so I went over there, spent the whole day with the title rep back and forth. That morning, we finally figured it out. That morning, what it was once a year with these reverse mortgages, you have to file with them an occupancy, a certificate that you're occupying the property, that you're living there, because you cannot, in most, if not all cases, you can't not live in the home you have a reverse mortgage on. And so we spent the day together. I talked to the gentleman that came over, nice enough guy, semi-shady, sent him on his way. Said, listen, I'm a good personal friend of Tom's, sent him on his way, and that was that. And he was trying to get him into something that wasn't necessary. All we had to do was fax one piece of paper, actually two, saying, yes, I live here. It was this long in this notice. It was a less than a paragraph. It was a sentence. So we filled that out, and we also filled out a third party authorization allowing me to call and find out the status on his behalf. So, that's what we did. And now, we're following up actually today to make sure that all the documents are in, and he's not going to get foreclosed on. That simple thing, that one little paper, he could have lost his home over. Now, why did this happen? Why did the lender not explain this to him? Why did the lender not maintain a relationship? That's why you don't want to go to these big lending houses. Deal with a local lender. You have their cell number. You can call them anytime. Deal with somebody that is going to take care of you. I've known these people for 10 years. I've not made one dime. And I spent 2 days with this person. Now, I'm not saying this to make me look like a saint. What I'm saying is this is what full-time realtors do. We're in the business to help people, not take advantage of them. Okay? That's what I want you to understand. I want you to pass this on to your friends. So next time you interact with an agent, I want you to know this. I don't know where you're watching this. I don't know if you're on the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, wherever you are. You're out of my area. If you're in my area, you can call me anytime. I love answering questions. I love educating people on how real estate works. So anyway, that's my story. This is our first podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you can email me, you can call me. All the information should be here. And that's it. So have a great day, night, whatever time it is you're watching this, listening to it, whatever. Jeff Hartman here with Real Estate. Have a good day. Bye. Hey, so thanks. That's our show for today. If you have any questions, you want to reach out, anything at all, you can reach me at jeff@jeffhartman.com or call me at 714-457-1759 or find me on Facebook at Jeff Hartman RE, and that's Jeff with a G, Geoff. Have a good one.